Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. It's 3 p.m. here in the UK and it's 10 a.m. Eastern time. And you're all most welcome to join us here at 0 Days Live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Monday, of course, where in a few moments we will welcome Yaron Levi, Chief Information Security Officer at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City. But before that, a very quick look at what we have for the rest of this week as well. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we're going to be tackling issues around edge computing and IoT security, including insight from HAS F1 regular Gary Foote, Chief Information Officer. We'll also revisit the subject of CISO stress with a psychologist's perspective on the CISO role, and taking a glimpse at the work being done by the Cyber Protect Network to help us all operate more secure. Finally, this week we do have our Fun Friday edition, where we'll be embracing National Chocolate Chip Cookie and Pizza Party Day with esteemed journalist Dan Swinhoe from CISO magazine. So hope you can join us for that too. Hello everybody, hope you're well. I'm Stuart Reed, I'm with Nominet, focused on cyber solutions. And as usual, I'm in the chair today to welcome our special guests, not just today, but each and every day of our live shows. Just a quick reminder about Nominet. We're primarily responsible for managing the .uk domain, which we've been doing for over 23 years now, with something in the order of 15 million domains currently under management. Now, building on this strong heritage of understanding the importance of domain names for network connectivity, we also provide cybersecurity solutions to protect both government and enterprise networks worldwide from cyber attacks, including providing service to the UK government's National Cybersecurity Centre. Ensuring people are able to be connected, included and secure is at the heart of what we do, and no time more important than right now, of course, where we're all in pretty interesting times and working much more remotely and relying far more on digital communications. And so with that in mind, we decided to bring you an interactive show to bridge that gap left behind by the lack of physical meetings or one-to-ones that are taking place right now, to bring you 0 Days Live, which is a show for everybody with an interest in or from within the cybersecurity community. Now, I am joined both front of house and behind the scenes each and every day with a highly capable team, making sure everything runs just the way it should, albeit remotely. Remotely is what we're doing right now. But this week's burning question is also something that is around remote working too. What have you been what have you done differently in the lockdown situation that we're all finding ourselves in now that you want to continue after lockdown? Please do let us know. Now, for me, gave a lot of thought to this, and it has to be exercising outdoors. It has to be said, before our so-called lockdown period, I was perhaps a little bit lazy, but since lockdown, I've been trying my very best to make the most of my permitted exercise routine outdoors, and I've really quite enjoyed it. So that's something that I would like to continue once we move out of this this kind of remote working or enforced remote working phase. Steve, welcome back from your extended leave. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good. Thanks, Stuart. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. I have to say it's slightly chillier today than it has been on our extended weekend, but it's still a nice bright sky. How about yourself?
Yeah, still nice and bright here, but as you say, it's very, very windy outside. So that piece of exercise might be a bit more of a struggle today, Stuart.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not particularly looking forward to going outside, but at least it's dry, so I will make the effort later on. Now, what have you been doing differently in lockdown, Steve, that you want to continue afterwards?
So for me, it's social distancing. I think I'm going to carry on doing that, just because it seems the safest thing to do. I realised that my mum has prepared me for a life of lockdown, because when I was younger, all I can hear her saying to me is, I think that goes for people as well as objects. So I'm going to stick with social distancing for the time being, I think.
Jolly good. It's not because you're antisocial, of course. It's just you've got everyone else's best interests at heart. So
of course, I've never been accused of being antisocial ever. Promise.
Good. Pleased to hear it, and absolutely not the least antisocial on our show, as all of our viewers would be testament to. So. Good answer. Thank you very much, Steve. And also, everybody tuning in, please do let us know what you want to carry through beyond lockdown as well, and we'll read them out on the screen when you type them in for us. And of course, this show really isn't the same without all of you tuning in at home, and we're delighted to welcome both our regulars and also new audience members each and every day as we start to build an accessible community to bring people together, hear from others in the industry, get a round of what's going on in the news, share some thoughts on best practice, and of course, interject a bit of good humor along the way. Now, with that in mind, we do cover a lot of important subjects here at 0 Days Live, but we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we like to try and keep things pretty authentic. And just a quick reminder, for each of our 30-minute or so shows, we are absolutely completely and utterly live each and every day that we are running. And as such, there's bound to be some mild blips. Regular viewers will have noticed that there have been a few blips along the way, but when they do happen, we hope you just agree it's just part of the show and why you tune in to see us every day. And also remember that whilst we are live every day, if you're not able to join us for whatever reason, you can catch us at your convenience too on demand. Just check us out at nominetcyber.com/0dayslive. And please do, as we've said many times before, and as you already have been, please do get involved. If during today's show or any of the other live shows that you join, you want to ask a question, give us a bit of comment, give us some feedback, please do so. Simply type your question or your comment into the console on the right hand side of your screen, and Kerry will read them out during the live webcast. And speaking of Kerry, welcome back from the long weekend, Kerry. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, lovely to have a nice long extended weekend.
It was very pleasant, wasn't it? I managed to get 2 barbecues in this weekend actually, which I'm very pleased about.
Oh, brilliant. I managed to chase some peacocks down the road. That is another story.
Poles apart on that one, I think. But what have you done differently, Kerry, in lockdown that you want to continue through afterwards?
So for me, I think it's an obvious one really, but it's video conversations with my friends and family. Probably wouldn't really have crossed our minds prior to this to get onto a group call and do a quiz or do some kind of isolation activity online. And now, you know, there's things going on pretty much every night, and really connecting to people that previously weren't connecting to. So friends in Luxembourg, Australia, and can't remember where the other ones live, Italy. You know, it really can bring the group back together, which has been lovely.
Well, you know what, I'd really agree with that, because obviously we're all very used to doing the occasional video calls, but usually you pick up the phone to somebody that you haven't seen for a while, rather than do the kind of the almost face-to-face video chat. So I think that's one of those things that actually has become slightly more mainstream now, and certainly is a good thing to carry through. It makes it slightly more personal. So I think that's a good shout, and actually one that I'd buy into as well. Thank you very much for that. Now, as I mentioned a few moments ago, today we are very lucky to be welcoming to our virtual studios Yaron Levi, who is Chief Information Security Officer at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City. Welcome to the show, Yaron. How are you today?
Hi, good morning. Actually, good afternoon for you guys. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Excellent. Well, I'm so pleased that you're able to make it to our virtual studios today. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, as you've heard just a few moments ago, we've been asking a very important question this week, which is, what have you done differently in lockdown that you would want to continue afterwards? What have you got some thoughts on that, Yaron?
Well, it's pretty shallow, but since I don't have to work now and I don't have the commute in the morning, I can actually sleep in until 8 in the morning. So because of that, I stay past midnight and I watched all the TV series that I missed for so long.
Excellent. Well, I think that everyone's starting to feel the benefit of not having a commute, regardless of how fast or how long that commute is. It's good to get that time back to do something more positive with, perhaps. So yeah, I think that's one that a lot of people relate to as well. So as I said a few moments ago, thank you very much. I gave you a brief introduction, but for the benefit of everyone that's tuning in, perhaps you could give us just a little bit of an overview of what Blue Cross and Blue Shield does and what your role is within the organization.
Sure, absolutely. So again, Yaron Levi. I'm the CISO for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City. Blue Cross and Blue Shield is an association of 36 different companies, and they're all independent, and most of them are non-for-profit, and we provide health insurance for over 100 million Americans.
Excellent. Okay, and your role within there, then, Yaron, what's your main focus?
So I'm the CISO for one of the blue plans. We call them plans. These companies, we call them plans. I'm the CISO for one of the plans, this is my mostly my day job, and what I'm mostly busy with. And I also work with a lot of VCs and startups, kind of on the side, helping the community try to come up with new solutions for problems that we have, and also part of the Cloud Security Alliance. I'm one of the research fellows, so if everybody likes or hates the Cloud Controls Matrix or the CIAQ, I'm one of the people we can blame for that.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a pretty varied role or activities you're involved in at the moment, but tell us, what's it like being a Chief Information Security Officer in the healthcare industry right now?
Honestly, it's pretty challenging and rewarding at the same time. I think when it comes to healthcare, to security, the healthcare industry lags behind other industries, for many different reasons. It's very much still focused on compliance. We have a lot of sensitive data. We have privacy laws, but they're not as robust like in the UK or in the EU for that matter. And when you think about the threats and the risks, you always have to consider the human aspect and the potential impact to human lives. So we definitely have a lot of opportunities for improvement there.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And do you think that the healthcare industry is more or less at risk of attack compared to other industries, perhaps?
Well, when you think about the risk, you have to consider both the likelihood and the impact. So since healthcare, unfortunately, is still considered a soft target, then the likelihood for attack is higher. Because I much rather go as an attacker, I much rather go after somebody who it's easier for me to attack than somebody who is more robust. And since we have a lot of valuable information, including personal information, health information, payment information, the potential is also high, or the potential for impact is also high. So I would say yes, I think the healthcare industry is at a greater risk for an attack.
And actually, for regulars of this show, that they'll recognise that we do a bit of a weekly or a daily roundup of the news that's kind of breaking from a cybersecurity perspective, and it's it's really been quite saddening to see that there's been a huge amount of focus on creating a cybercrime or disruption at kind of the healthcare or critical national type industries as well. So I think that what you're saying there really is underlined by some of the news articles that we've reported on this show. So I think it really comes as no surprise. But given the current situation that we're in, keeping clearly the services up and running and free from cyber attack is arguably more important than perhaps ever before. What are the kind of things that you guys are doing to stay increasingly vigilant?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. One is, first of all, we're working a lot with our peers and in the organization, and also, with other organizations. First of all, to make sure that we're staying on top of things, that we're enabling people to work as securely as possible, as much as they do that from the office. And also share data and information on attacks, intelligence, and see whether there are some things that are happening that we need to be more mindful of and also focus on. In addition to that, we're spending time also communicating with users, educating users, explaining what are the potential things that can happen, how to stay vigilant, how to secure their whole systems, and go from there.
And are you taking any particular additional steps that you would do kind of out of the ordinary now than the kind of run rate stuff based on the current situation?
I think for the most part is the education and the awareness. I mean, sharing the information, with the people, as well as working with our third parties, because that's one of the things in healthcare. We have a lot of third parties that we need to share data with. So again, working with them, sharing the information, kind of standing together. I think that's one of the maybe the main differences that I see. We're doing more compared to let's call it more normal times, because it's something that we didn't really prepare for globally to act in this environment. And when you think about some of the plans, some of the business continuity plans, a lot of them are pretty much out the window. So we're still improvising a little bit here and there, but I think there's a lot of things that we can learn and things that we can share with our peers to make sure that we all stand together in this. Great.
Thank you, Yaron. And as the audience might have noticed, and in fact, you might have noticed as well, Steve popped up on our screen not once but twice during that conversation. He's obviously trying to get his exposure up from the fact that he missed our Friday show and make up for lost time now. Steve, I can only assume that you've got something to ask.
I have indeed, yes. I mean, we've heard a lot in the news about COVID-related cyber attacks, and whilst the overall number of attacks might not be on the increase, they've certainly started to move towards COVID-related campaigns, from phishing emails through to scammers pretending to be those in the organizations that are actually dealing with the crisis. What do you think the additional risks are around COVID-19 for organizations such as your own?
Well, so I think, first of all, there's a lot of fear because of COVID. And, many people lost their jobs, some lost loved ones. People are stressed and worried. So in this situation, it's easier to leverage people's emotion against them, which will make it easier to trick them. So there's another aspect to the risk with people moving to work from home, where the security of the home network is not as robust, like in their companies and organizations. So people using personal computers that may not be, as protected. In some cases, those computers are also shared with other family members, which also increases, the likelihood for some abuse, potentially some theft, some privacy issues, and so on. So I think combined all together between extra sensitivity, the ability, to trick people much more easily right now, because of playing on their emotions is easier, and then relaxed controls or low controls on home systems make that more difficult situation.
Sure. And is there also consideration around data privacy at the moment? We've talked to lots of organizations about the fact that they're kind of using more data for good, and we're seeing many governments try to use data to solve some of the problems surrounding the crisis. Is there some additional considerations we need to take into account around data privacy? Perhaps revealing too much confidential data about ourselves, or giving authorities too much access. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think we could probably dedicate like an entire show only for this topic alone, because I think if you look at what happened around the world and in many democratic countries, I think as citizens we actually did a terrible job giving away our privacy rights. And as in the past in many crisis situations, once again we're presented with a choice between safety and privacy. And sure enough, as soon as we get that option, we immediately throw away our privacy rights. So I think in many cases, I think countries and as citizens, we allowed perhaps our governments to do that. I think we actually went a little bit too far. I don't think that should be an either or choice. I think we can and should have both. It may take more time, more effort, more money, legislation, education, and so on and so forth. But our privacy and our rights and our liberties, for that matter, are important. And it's a dangerous slippery slope. And even countries, when they say, well, it's an emergency situation and we'll only use it for emergencies, well, emergencies happen all the time. So, that quote unquote excuse is being used more and more, and there goes your rights. So, for me, privacy is part of our freedom. And if the choice is between safety or freedom, I prefer freedom.
But as you say, it's not impossible to have both. And if it's designed correctly and the privacy is implemented as part of that solution from the outset, then we can have a kind of an almost perfect world where we're being secure whilst our privacy is maintained as well.
Yep.
Thank
Great.
you.
Well, thanks for those questions, Steve. Also, thanks for your insight just then as well. Now, I know that we've got some questions coming in from our audience. Kerry, what have we got?
Yes, we do. So we have a question in from Raj, who's saying, what do you think the biggest cyber threat is to the healthcare sector?
For the most part, is cyber criminals. I think for the most part, still the biggest motivator is money. As I said before, because healthcare for the most part is fairly soft target, and it's easier to compromise them, and then through extortion or through some other means, just to get money out of them. So we've seen a lot of the ransomware attacks and some others that shut down hospitals and impacted other organizations in healthcare. And basically, in order to maintain availability and go back up and running, essentially they had to pay. So it's mostly, financially motivated.
Okay. So we've got a second question that's coming from Harrison that actually is linked to that. He says, obviously WannaCry hit the UK in a big way. What was the impact in the US, and what have you put in place to combat ransomware?
Yeah, so a lot of companies here got hit by that as well, ransomware and some others. There are also some other forms like Ryuk that hit a lot of the governments and local governments, here in the US. It's the same, for me, it's like the same controls like we always have. So, email protection controls, user education and awareness, training, and then building the stack on the endpoints and others to ensure that, we have the right protections. But also try to take more proactive steps in terms of network segmentation, reducing the data footprint, limiting the amount of data that we're storing. I mean, we really have to look at yourself and check, well, do I really need to store so much data for so long? If our data retention policy says we only have to retain data for 6 months, why do we keep it for like 5 years? So taking more proactive steps to ensure that we are following our policies and we are doing what we're supposed to do.
Brilliant. And along that line as well, Justin's actually asked about patient data. Do you think that it's stored in the most secure way possible?
Probably not. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's a lot of legacy systems in healthcare. We are not, by and large, at the forefront of technology when it comes to that. These are not an engineering-oriented companies for the most part. The focus is first and foremost on care, as it should be. So when you think about, IT, technology, and so on, usually it takes somewhat of a second seat when it comes to that. The other thing is, if you take now what we all call as digital transformation and just kind of throw it on top of that, that's create another layer of complexity, and now you are exponentially growing your attack surface. So we definitely have a lot of opportunities and a lot of improvements that we need to do as an industry as a whole.
Brilliant. And then just finally, Julie's asking, what do you see the future of security in healthcare as being? How do you see it changing?
Yeah, so I think, like I said before, I think there's a lot of opportunities for improvement. Identity protection is a big thing. Today, if you think about it, our physical identity is very, very tightly tied to our digital identity. And there may be some opportunities there to make that more robust, if you will, in terms of how we address it. What do we do that? Privacy, information lifecycle management, these are all areas that we need to address and we need to take more seriously. And again, really think about, do we need to maintain all that data? Do we have to have all that data? And if yes, what are the right ways to protect it? I think one of the things that we'll also realize is that, at least here in the US, the healthcare organizations, or the healthcare industry, I should say, is very much compliance oriented. And I think people will need to realize more and more that compliance is important, but it does not equal security. It's just the minimum bar. It's not the end goal that we should shoot for. So as we see the threats, and then we see the impact on healthcare and others, I think we need to start approaching it more from a defense perspective and then back into compliance, and not the other way around.
That's great, thank you.
Great, well, thank you again. Good questions from the audience, and appreciate your insight there as well, Yaron, from your perspective. Now, as we touched on already, healthcare really is in the spotlight right now. We're in a very strange situation, which has kind of propelled healthcare front and center to most people's minds. And as I mentioned before, we've got news reports that are coming in almost daily now, where cyber criminals are picking at vulnerabilities that they're being seen. As someone at the forefront of cyber defense in healthcare, are there any key takeaways you'd like to leave our audience with this discussion today?
Yeah, so there is a very famous quote from Mike Tyson, who used to be the world heavyweight boxer champion, and he said, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." Well, the COVID situation really, we got punched hard, and pretty much, we had to throw most of our plans out of the windows, and start pretty much improvising from scratch. So even though we had to improvise, I've seen people come together and support each other. I know many people are worried about our lives and what our lives are going to look like after COVID, and how it's going to change. And I think it's very important that we learn from this experience and really create a better future. I hear people, depressed about, well, things are going to change for the worst. Well, our future is not written yet. So, it's up to us, to shape it. And if we would like to have a better future, then let's learn from where we are. Let's learn from the situation, and let's create a better future, not a worse one.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that, Yaron. I think you've given us a pretty honest view and insight from your perspective of where you're seeing things within healthcare, and certainly plenty for us to think about. So very much appreciate your time today. Thank you very much, Yaron. We are almost at the top of today's show, but before we do, we'll give a quick roundup and wash up of the news from Kerry. So back to you, Kerry.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, we've got some good articles in the roundup today. The ZDNet reports that Microsoft and Intel have collaborated on a new project to explore an approach for detecting and classifying malware. The technique involves converting malware into grayscale images and then scanning them for textual and structural patterns specific to malware. Security Boulevard tell us that US Senator Mark Warner has sent a letter to 6 major internet networking device vendors, urging them to ensure that minimum security standards for IoT products are met. And then finally, in ZDNet again, more than 300 phishing and scam websites, many related to coronavirus, have been taken down by UK intelligence services after the general public flagged over 160,000 suspicious email messages.
Wow, thank you, Kerry. Some pretty big numbers there. Actually, it's interesting that news is really starting to touch on a number of different themes that we're going to continue to explore on this show, but also things that we've touched on already. So IoT, which of course is Internet of Things, and infrastructure security has certainly been hotly debated recently. I think the recent example of the cyber attack on the Israeli water facilities is one area. It's also talking about how you're bringing together that kind of legacy and new technology, which of course we covered in last week's show, and also touched on it just now by our guest today too. So it's certainly a number of different themes that seem to be cropping up and actually seem to be pretty common amongst all that. It's interesting, all those big numbers around the coronavirus related scams as well. Good news that there continues to be the takedown aspect, but it's clear that there is still there's still those scams trying to cause harm. So making sure we're staying vigilant, of course, is a key message there. Steve, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was interested in the article on IoT and the minimum security standards, and the fact that it's been addressed to the major internet networking device vendors. Now, I would argue that they're probably not the people that need to address this, because they are internet networking device vendors. Security is part and parcel of what they do. Okay, they don't always get it right, but it should be kind of part of their kind of design process. The IoT products I'm more worried about are those that are designed by people who don't have experience in internet networking devices. The likes of people that have historically made light bulbs or washing machines or anything else that are now starting to be connected to the internet. They are not security experts. They don't have the expertise in this area. And I think the only way that we're going to improve things is through regulation. I think that kind of asking companies to do the right thing is going to be worthless going forwards when we see the current and ongoing expansion of internet connected devices.
Yeah, well, you raised an interesting point there, actually, because Internet of Things touches so many different aspects right now. It's not just the traditional network connectivity type applications or devices. You're right, it's light bulbs, it's washing machines, it's printers, all sorts of different things are becoming connected now, which of course can present a bit of a challenge to organizations that are trying to get a handle on where these things are and whether they're operating in the way that they should be. So yeah, I think definitely more to come on that. So interesting perspective. Thank you, Steve. Well, that is it for today. We will touch on the question of IoT, of course, tomorrow. But in the meantime, special thanks to our guest today, Yaron Levi, Chief Information Security Officer at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City. To everybody here, front of house and behind the scenes at ZeroDaysLive, and of course to all of you tuning in today on Monday. Just a quick reminder that show regular HAS F1 CIO Gary Foote will be joining us in our virtual studios tomorrow, so do tune in then. Until then, do have excellent rest of the day and see you soon. Goodbye.